everybody. My name is Deanna Postlethewaite, and I am our business unit manager for our virtual welding training products at Lincoln Electric. I've been with Lincoln for 10 years. I actually started in product development on our power wave technology, and then I moved over to our automation division where I was our marketing manager for our automation division for a couple years, and I took over our business unit for our virtual welding training about a year ago. So I've kind of danced around a little bit with education the whole entire time that I've been at Lincoln, and one of the things that we've done a lot of work with the educators, with AWS, with a lot of different organizations is working on different activities to look at attracting and engaging students. So what I thought I'd go through today is to look at the classroom of the future, so the digital classroom, to look at 7 tips to attract and engage students. So I think this actually plays in really well with David's presentation. And then 5 different examples, and then just to do some quick Q&A. So when I talk about the digital classroom, it's the idea of looking at technology to redefine education. So the idea that we have all this technology available today, and how do we start using that to accelerate the learning process? How do you supplement that into your classroom to make it more fun, more engaging, to make your classes interactive, and to create things that draw students in, but keep them in the classroom with you, so that when you take a break or when you turn your back to write something on the board, they all don't rush to get out their cell phone and text each other what's going on after school. So the other part of this is how do we attract the digital youth? So I actually have a 21-year-old and I have a 15-year-old. So these 2 kids are amazing. I am the reason that these children have every electronic device ever known to man. So before I complain about my children having it, I'm the reason they have it. So I'm very excited to see them embrace technology. They can do things with their digital. I just hand mine over and I say, make mine work. And they come to me and they give me all, here, Mom, I got a new app for you. So they embrace this technology. So how do we get them to use it in the classroom, to make the classroom more exciting, to help you get them excited about learning? So that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today. That picture is actually at World Skills. Jason Schmidt's in the back of the room. We had an amazing time at World Skills. We went in London, and we actually went this year to Germany, and you'd go to this event and they brought in children from all sizes. I call the little ones tater tots. But literally just swarms of kids would come over and they wanted to be a part of our booth. Not just virtual welding. We had helmets on the stand. They wanted to put on the helmet and the gloves. They wanted to see everything. They wanted to touch it and try it. So these are different things that I think you could implement easily in your classroom to make things more engaging. And we're going to start out small. Some of you may be using this today. So the idea of using video technology in your classroom. So the idea that you can take a video and implement it in your classroom, and you can show students different technology. You can get them to see the welding arc before they ever go to make their first weld. You can use expert tips. So there's all kinds of videos out there of different experts giving tips on how to weld. So all of a sudden they can look at somebody that's building motorcycles. They may not be the perfect person as a role model, but it'll keep them excited about what they're learning about. You can use industry specialists. So Lincoln Electric has done a number of different tips videos with our equipment and our technology. One of the things that we did earlier this year, because we had gotten feedback that instructors can't use YouTube in their classroom, is we created a technical tip video, 2 DVDs that you can get from us free of charge that you can play in your classroom. So if you can't get on YouTube, we have it available for you today. Manufacturer tutorials. The other thing that you can do, all of a sudden you're looking at this video technology, that's out there and available today, ask your students to create a video. My son is the most amazing video editor that you have ever seen. He has his own YouTube channel, and he is editing videos of him falling off of things and jumping. All of my furniture's ruined in the house because of my son, and I know why, because I can see it on YouTube. But you can actually get them to videotape themselves teaching a lesson. All of a sudden, you turn it around on them, and you ask them, if you were to teach this to me, how would you teach this to me? And they can do a small tutorial video back to you and implement that in the classroom. One of the things that I always say, because safety is forefront in all of our minds, is when you go out on YouTube, when you see some of the videos, you just want to make sure that if they're looking at the videos, you're reinforcing the safety aspects. So if you see somebody out there doing a video and they don't have proper safety gear on, make sure you reiterate that. So it's using the failure in that video to actually educate the student in the classroom. So if they're not in proper apparel, say this is a great video to learn this aspect of it, but guess what? They failed in this arena, and this is how you'd fix it. So it kind of pulls all those aspects back together. Number 2 is creating multimedia presentations. So how many of you know what an infographic is? This is an infographic. So the idea of this is there's about 2 40-page papers that were written by Iowa State University, and I love Iowa State, but they're PhD students. So really, I needed like a gallon of coffee to get through these studies. This infographic takes those studies and creates a visual presentation of them. So it's just a snapshot of what these studies actually show. And if you think about the creative process and getting students to articulate back to you what you're trying to learn, you can ask them, create an infographic, create graphs, create pie charts, take some of the data that you're learning and put it into a visual presentation. You can use the part in the middle of the screen. Does everybody know what a QR code is? They're all over the place at the show. Actually, on your badge, you have a QR code, and we're using those at the show to actually scan leads. So your information is captured on this QR code. As a teacher, you can use QR codes. They're easy to make. There's all kinds of websites, shorturl.com. You can go there and put a URL in, and it'll create one of these. So you've got students with their phones in the classroom, tell them to scan that, and you can take them to a website where you want them to go to learn something new. You can take them to a page with information on it that you want them to reference. I actually did, was like a hunt, and I had QR codes around the room, and I said, go to each of these websites and pick out something that's important to you related to this subject. And the students went around the room, and all of them captured different links on their phone, and they went to the web pages, and they searched through the web page for something on that page that was important to them. And it helped them use interactive information, use their phone that they wanted to be playing with, but it made the environment of the classroom fun and engaging. It kept them excited. They weren't sitting in their seats listening to somebody talk the whole time. All kinds of other things you can implement. You can do online polls. You can have the students poll each other. There's a free thing called surveymonkey.com where they can create a survey and survey the whole class and then present the results back. Use animations, use high-resolution photos. There's a lot of manufacturers. Lincoln Electric will let you use any photo as long as you reference, this is a photo provided by Lincoln Electric, any photo out there to use as a reference to tie back to applications, to tie back to industry, to give the students reference points. So making your presentations in the classroom as interactive and as fun as possible for the students keeps them excited in their seats. It keeps your classroom engaging. It keeps them from nodding off or getting distracted or picking up their phone for something that you don't want them to be doing. Webinars and podcasts. I was glad David mentioned that AWS has on AWS.org, the American Online, is doing podcasts. We've done webinars this year. We actually did webinars in partnership with RIA. Tooling U has done webinars. These are easy things that you can incorporate into your classroom as a supplement. All of a sudden you have somebody else engaging with your students. They can all listen to it, and afterwards you guys can talk about what did you just hear on that actual webinar, what are the relevant pieces of it. Most of the time on the webinars we actually define the objectives. On the last one we did a robotics in the classroom webinar, and we actually had RIA on the webinar with us, as well as Tim Baber. Some of you might know Tim from College of the Canyons, and they both talked about the same aspect of robotics in the classroom with us. So it was an easy way to get industry specialists involved in your classroom and to give the students another perspective.
Does it say in the top left what site that is from?
The
It says Advanced Welding Techniques. Is that the site that we might search and find more webinars from?
So that Advanced Welding Techniques one was done by RIA. So if you go to roboticsonline.org, they actually did a series of webinars this year, and they've also archived all of them. So they're all available and recorded. And all of the ones that Lincoln Electric did this year are recorded as well, so I can send you a link. We did a grant writing webinar where we actually had a grant writer come in on the webinar with us to give tips about where to find grants and then actually how to write them. We did one on blended virtual welding training, so how to incorporate virtual welding with traditional welding in your classroom, and the last one was on robotics. And all of those are recorded, so we can provide the presentation as well as the recording to you. Put that down. The other thing that I would recommend highly is going on field trips and shows with your students. And you can go to any type of different events. FABTECH is amazing. If you think about taking your students through that hall right now with all of that technology, it would just be an amazing opportunity. World Skills is similar. It's just this big venue of where they can see technology, where they can see demonstrations, where they can experience it. There's a show called IMTS that's in September this year that actually has a hall dedicated to students. It's called a Student Summit, and you can bring your students to that event for free. The other thing is if you can't make it to a trade show, to consider going to state fairs. So the American Welding Society's Career in Welding trailer goes to state fairs. You can do field trips to different manufacturing floors. So I know we have a number of manufacturers that will open up their doors on manufacturing day. A number of them did this, and they invited students in to take a look at what the manufacturing floor looks like. All of a sudden, the student's image of what a manufacturing floor looks like changes because the manufacturing floor doesn't look like what media shows it. So I know Vermeer did an amazing event in Iowa where they invited students in, they gave them demonstrations, they allowed them to actually try different products. So they did an amazing an event at Vermeer for Manufacturing Day. The other thing is to let them see and try things at these events. So if you can, to partner with your local manufacturers and ask them about setting up a day where you can actually have some younger manufacturing students out on the floor with the kids to actually see what's going on the floor. This gives them visibility, and it ties back to the end. So that idea of I'm learning how to weld, but what am I going to do when I get out? They start seeing industry, they start seeing the end game, and they get excited about where they're going and where the opportunities are available to them. The other thing that I think is an amazing opportunity is to do challenges and competitions in the classroom. And one of the things I know automatically, every parent that I talk to doesn't like challenges and competitions because everybody wants their student to win, whether or not they're good enough to win or not. But the idea behind a challenge or a competition in the classroom is you can do all kinds of challenges. You can hone in on different skills. So if you've got a guy that can lay down the most beautiful bead, he can win that competition, but then focus on different skill levels, skill areas where he might not be the best, and allow other people in the room to actually win as well. So with the FABTECH, just as an example, you could actually say, we're going to do whoever can hold the right travel speed and run the travel speed and get a 99 on travel speed can win the award for the day. And it could be something simple as a hat. You could buy them a bag of M&Ms. They love it because the idea is if you do a competition and you put it on the board, they see their name. Everybody wants to beat that guy the next day. And I will tell you that if you have young women in the room, they are overly competitive. Usually I knock Sarah's elbow every time when she's welding to make sure that she doesn't do a better weld than I do, so I have pulled her hair as well. But the idea behind it is to build that competition. One of the other things that you'll find out, though, is that the students coach each other. All of a sudden, they become the instructor, and they say, you're not doing it right. Here, let me show you. And the competition actually builds camaraderie between the students in the classroom. You can do leaderboards. You can do them in the classroom. One of the other things, I'm on social media only to follow my kids around social media, but the idea of using social media to say, if you're doing an exercise outside of the classroom, they can do a tag on their social media account and say, high score for the day, and they can actually put it on there, and all of their friends outside of their classroom can start seeing they're the leader in their class. And all of a sudden it builds this excitement outside of your classroom. And other students start to go, what are they doing in that class? Why are they on social media? Why are they making that class so much fun? And you get interest from other people. One of the community colleges actually did a Facebook competition where they said, take a picture of your virtual welding score and post it on Facebook. And whoever wins, they were going to give a prize to. But the school started getting this competition going, and it built up a lot of excitement for the students to just come and try it. They said they had an overwhelming amount of students coming in from other departments that just wanted to try a virtual weld. So you think about not only engaging your students, but attracting students from other environments into the classroom for welding. My video not going to play. I have a video. So the reason I wanted to show you this video is one of the other things that you can do in a virtual environment is that you can show a demonstration of a weld, but you can also show a replay of a weld being done. So once you're in the classroom, you can use this tool to be interactive. So say, for instance, the student's welding. We can all watch him weld in the classroom. We can see a demonstration of the right way to do the weld. But then if a student actually makes an error, we can critique that weld in the classroom. So that idea of using a failure as a way to learn. So if somebody pulls a long contact tip to work distance, you're going to use that as a learning exercise in your classroom before they ever walk out into the welding lab to make that error themselves. So you get to associate good welding technique and improper welding technique and actually guide them through that process. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to come to the booth to just try it out real quick because it definitely can be a great part to incorporate into your classroom. The demonstration weld and the replay weld were done as upgrade packages, so those are additions onto the product that we did since the beginning. One of the other things that David mentioned is project-based lessons, and I'm kind of excited. Sarah's more excited than I am, that we just did 2 project-based lesson books. One for robotic welding and one for virtual welding. And one of the reasons that we did these were we had a number of educators asking us, how do I implement this in my classroom? Can you hand me curriculum? One of the things that we don't want to do is to give you your curriculum, because your curriculum's built around you and your students in your program. But we wanted to give you something to start with, some ideas, starters. So these are all projects that you can implement in the classroom with your students, and they're all tied to a regular lesson plan. So they do have objectives, what materials you need. They have step-by-step lessons. And then at the end of it, we actually did the discussion questions with you. So you can use these or you can create your own. But the idea of, now you did this lesson, what happens if you do this at a higher travel speed? And then tracking your results on a page. So I'm going to send these around. The first one is the robotic one. The next one on the virtual welding, we actually did something a little bit different. We actually tied back to the Common Core. So you'll see at the end of the lesson how this ties into educational Common Core. So you'll see this lesson, you're going to learn speaking and listening, language arts skills, and mathematics. But then we also tied it back into the AWS Sense. So these have references at the end of the lessons, how we've incorporated those in for you. So really the idea of creating a lesson, but tying it to STEM type of aspects in AWS Sense to really tie into different standards that you can use and reference as an educator. These lessons really get your students building that critical thinking. You give them the lesson, and they go and they do it themselves. So it's that idea of kind of letting go, control over the teaching process, because they're teaching themselves through the lesson. So you give specific instructions. I wouldn't give students a lesson without telling them, okay, you're going to do the following things, and then you're going to rotate to make sure, especially on the robotic side, that everybody picks up the teach pendant and interacts with that robot. There are also, I would be remiss in not saying that FABTECH book does have flashcards in it. So really these are built around the idea of Kickstarters for you guys to do, design, create, and learn in your classroom. So we're going to do more of these, and your feedback would be wonderful. So I encourage you to take a look and give us feedback. One of the last things that I have is to look at higher order thinking questions. So this is like the discussion questions at the end of all of these lessons, the ideas of reinforcing the skills that they're learning. So challenging them with questions about how they would do it themselves. So the idea of using that video, teach me the lesson I just taught you. My son actually did a Photoshop class, and my husband is a computer programmer, so they cheat together all the time. So I started watching the two of them, and my husband's like, just do this, and there's clicking going on. So then I told him, I said, before you're finished, I said, I want you to write down step by step. Tell me, if you were to give someone else that lesson, how would you teach them? And he gave me 3 steps. And I said, okay, I'm going to go on the computer and I'm going to try and do what you just did in these 3 steps. So I went over, and my son's looking at me and he goes, you can't do it that way. You have to, and he's clicking the mouse. And I'm like, no, you were supposed to write down all the steps. And he goes, okay. And he goes back. He ended up with 37 steps to do what the 2 of them did together. And I said, that's why you need to make sure that you understand exactly what you're doing. He understood that. He actually took those steps into his classroom and then got extra credit and said it was all because of him. But really, the idea of challenging the students back to give you something in return. Some of the ideas that they come up with might be something you can implement in your class the next time. So it is a great opportunity to see them become creative and get engaged in the classroom as well. So the next piece of this, and I apologize, I actually do have a cough drop in my mouth because I am on my last strand of my vocal cords, but I'm holding on. I said I just need to get to 9:30. So the best practice examples, I want to just give you a couple looks at different ways that schools are doing things differently in their classrooms. to give you ideas. So one of the places is College of the Canyons. This is Tim Baber's school out in California. I told him he's not allowed to talk about weather to me ever again because it was 85 the other day. But the idea of taking advanced technology in a lab to spark the careers of students in robotic arc welding. So Tim's pushing his local industry to incorporate robotics and getting his students excited about robotics in his classroom. He has 2 fixed table systems, and he has 4 smaller robotic education cells that he has implemented in this classroom. And really his idea is, even if local industry is not doing robotics yet, that his students have an advanced skill set that they can go beyond the local industry, and they have a portable skill that they can take with them, that they have the opportunity to be a leg up on other students. So the rest of the students are walking out saying, I have welding, and his students are walking out saying, I have welding, and I can program a robot as well. So the idea of developing and reinforcing skills, he actually uses the FABTECH in his classroom because he doesn't do a prereq for his robotic welding course. So he uses the FABTECH to actually do the fundamental skill development, the understanding of contact, tip to work distance, travel speed, travel angle, all of the fundamentals of regular MIG welding, you have to know when you program a robot anyway. So using the FABTECH, he has the ability to incorporate that into the classroom. He does an amazing amount of work on the mobile recruitment side of it with a small trailer that they've implemented with different welding equipment. And he goes out to events to draw students into the school. Students, parents, to get excited about where the career path of technology can take their student. Another example is a school that just did a grand opening in September. They're in Ohio, Lima, Columbus area. But the idea behind it, RAMTech actually stands for Robotics and Advanced Manufacturing Technology Education Collaborative. That's why they call it RAMTech, because that's really a mouthful. But it is co-located with Tri-Rivers Career Center. And the whole idea of the collaborative is that they pulled together welding, robotics, offline programming, CNC. That whole place is just an advanced manufacturing technology playground. I could stay there for months on end. But they also have pulled in area manufacturers. So they have some really big area manufacturers in this location. So they have a huge Whirlpool location right nearby. They also have Honda in Marysville. And what they've done with these manufacturers, the manufacturers are saying we can't find students with the right skills. Those manufacturers have helped them create their lesson plans for their classrooms. They're also looking at giving parts to the school to allow the student to learn the part as a part of their trade program and then walk out into an actually guaranteed job in the local manufacturers. So if you do have large manufacturers in the area, the idea of not only training new students for those careers, but also retraining. So if you think about some of the people in that plant, they may be switching positions, they may be taking a welder and making them a robotic welding programmer, and they need those different skill sets. So they're the education arm for that manufacturing location. So this is a wonderful opportunity. Because it's co-located with Tri-Rivers, they also have the opportunity to constantly pull kids into this facility to see different demonstrations. So that's a great area. Pitt Community College is in North Carolina, and Pitt did something similar. So they actually created a customized training program trailer, and what they're doing is they're actually going to their area manufacturers and they're teaching on the job site welding training. So the manufacturer is saying, I've got guys that can't make this weld. They're doing it in the trailer and then right at the site. So the guys never have to leave work. They just come out to the trailer, they learn, and then they go back into the job. So the idea of the manufacturer is, I want my guys on the floor as fast and competent as possible, and Pitt's doing an amazing job of helping that happen. And then they also are doing blended welding training with the FABTECH to do analysis, performance, real-time feedback, and actual recruiting as well. A lot of manufacturers are looking at the virtual welding training product as a way to do skill level evaluation for incoming job placement. So this is a way that they can look at students coming in, or even just people that are saying, I have welding skills, and using it as a screening tool as well. So a lot of manufacturers are looking at this product to actually do that type of thing. If you think about it from the classroom perspective, all of a sudden it helps you put measurable results. If you think about some of the things that can get in the way of a student feeling like they just made a good weld and they understand why they made it, giving them a measurable result to say, here's something quantifiable that says this is why this is a good weld. And it helps them understand and actually be confident in what they're doing. Lansing Community College has an amazing lab. They also have continually done incorporation of technology with instructors with a number of years of experience. One of the things that I like about Lansing, actually held a Steel Day event. I don't know if you guys know what Steel Day is, but Steel Day is just an event created by the AISC, but it's a specific day, and everybody from manufacturing to suppliers to industrial type of people open up their doors and do tours and demonstrations. On Steel Day, I actually invited Vern Messler from Lansing Community College into Lincoln to do a presentation. Vern is an instructor at Lansing, but he also does bridge restoration on the side. So if you think about taking a student and talking about you're going to learn welding, and taking someone that does bridge restoration, and if you ever go and just look up Vern Messler's name and bridge restoration, he does amazing things with bridges. And he's so passionate about metal. When he talks about it, you want to go and restore a bridge with him. But having somebody like that on staff, or even bringing someone like that in as a guest speaker to give your students that idea of why is this important? Why am I making weld after weld after weld in a booth? Why do I even care? You have somebody stand there and talk to these students about restoring a bridge or creating a bridge and look at structural design. All of a sudden, it makes everything kind of tie back together. It's tangible. It gives them excitement about what they're learning. They also did an amazing transfer agreement with Ferris State. So if you do the 2-year, you can go on to Ferris State if a student wants to do that. So they did a great job at that school. White Mountains Community College actually just recently did incorporation of the FABTECH. So they're using it in their training lab and their mobile training unit. They have associate degree where they're tying in different technology. So the power wave, the idea of using production monitoring and checkpoint. If you don't know what those are, I encourage you to come to our booth and take a look. But they're tracking tools for the actual welding system. So all of a sudden you can start seeing the weld was made at this time, it met all of these parameters, or it didn't. You can have an alert go off. You can track. We have something that we're demonstrating that shows the sequence of a weld. So if you actually have a part with 15 different welds on it, you can track that sequence and you can see that they made the welds in the proper sequence. And it helps you really get that idea of taking a project and putting it into a system and then tracking that result and getting that feedback, that immediate feedback. And if there's one thing that students want, it is constant, immediate feedback. This is the generation that can look up anything on Google. So if they're not getting feedback constantly, they feel like they should be. So they're building an associate degree around these project-based lessons that they're doing with power waves and that tracking technology and cutting. And they're also building excitement on their campus. So their administration, the different departments, they're pulling them all together to try and build excitement for a robotic cell. And then the last one is actually a school that called me after I did the robotics webinar that we just recently did, and the whole classroom sat on the webinar, and they wanted to give me feedback. So they actually got on a phone call with me and told me that they loved the webinar, but they actually wanted me to come back to them with manufacturing people, that they could have the students actually hear what the different people in manufacturing are doing and why their career is important to them, why they chose their career path, how they got to their career end. And they wanted the kids to have examples of what the real thing was like in manufacturing. So I actually have a couple of manufacturers that are going to partner with us on a webcast for next year to talk directly to the students about, this is the career path I chose, this is why I chose it, and this is why it's effective. To give students really those eyes out onto the manufacturing floor. And on a webcast, you can play it the day it's actually held, or on a recording, you can play it any time that's convenient for you. So I like to say these are probably some of the most exciting times in education. I think education, if I could do it all over again, I would love to be an educator with you. So the idea that we have the opportunity to get these students excited about where they're going, to look at manufacturing. And I know there was discussion about how many jobs have left the United States, but I'm hearing a whole lot of manufacturers talking about reshoring jobs and bringing work back because they can't get the quality and the value out of taking jobs outside of the U.S. The U.S. has an amazing workforce from the mindset that we know what quality is, we understand what productivity is, we know how to make things, we just need to bring it back here. So I think the idea that, I've talked to a lot of educators that say that their classrooms are full, that they actually are trying to find a way to actually add on classes so that they can accommodate students. The idea of a flipped classroom, and I actually think it's funny that flipped classroom is such a big thing right now, because when I look at technical education, you guys have been doing a flipped classroom forever. It's just the rest of education has kind of been behind you. But then also the idea of, I use the word gamification with our vice president of automation, and he said, don't ever use that word again. But the idea of gamification, the idea of creating fun in your classroom, all of the stuff that we talked about to make your classroom a lot more engaging and fun, I think this is a perfect time. And I think our students and our kids coming in are the perfect kids to make the next manufacturing workforce. Because as much as we want to complain about how much they're playing with Sony PlayStation or Windows Xbox, they are so technology bound that if you think about just harnessing a shred of that power out on the manufacturing floor, all of a sudden we are going to have the state-of-art manufacturing workforce in a very short time. We just got to get them in the classroom and get them back out on the floor. And that idea of taking industry and education and bridging that gap. So in most of my examples that I showed you today, that's where I see the power of a lot of educators, is not only taking their local industry, but taking the idea of where manufacturing can take these students and giving them the sight of where a career path in manufacturing can take them. Because it's not, a student's going to learn welding today and then they're just going to be a welder the rest of their life. They want to see where that can take them so they can be the next robotic engineer, they can be the next manufacturing engineer, they can be in charge of a plant at John Deere. They want to see and hear and understand how they can make a tangible result with the skill they're learning today. And that's my presentation.